Dangerfield. His speech title is The Games Afloat.
The Games Afoot.
The Games Afoot, Michael Dangerfield.
It's 1984. Two doctors walk into a hospital lab. There's a tall, angular man in front of them. He turns around and looks at one of the doctors and says, Afghanistan, I see. And they both, that's Holmes. They introduce each other, Sherlock Holmes, Dr. John Watson. They're there because they both have financial difficulties and they're looking to room together. And they go to 221B Baker Street, and that's where they start their association. Watson was the English gentleman of the Victorian age, but Holmes was an eccentric. He would actually have a jackknife that he put his correspondence in. Okay? His cigars were in a coal scuttle. His pipe tobacco was in a Persian slipper. And his cocaine, sad to say, was in the box in his drawer. He would have visitors all the time, and Watson couldn't figure this one on out because he had no friends come and no family, but a steady stream of visitors. And then he says, I must have the room, please. It's a 3-pipe problem, and he'd smoke all night long, creating smog throughout the room. One day, they're at breakfast, and Watson is reading this article, The Study of Life, and it's about observation and deduction. And it is that if you have minute observation, you can tell by a man's fingernails, his calluses, the way that his clothes are rubbed on his elbows, his pants, his shoes, the mud on the shoes, his profession. And Watson looks at that and goes, what absolute twaddle. Who wrote this? And Sherlock Holmes says, me. That's actually my profession. I observe to the absolute minutest detail and I make deductions. And I could tell, that's how I could tell that you were from Afghanistan. I just took a glance at you. You were tanned for England. You were obviously a doctor, said there because your familiarity with the lab. You had a limp. You were wounded, so you're a retired doctor. And you had to be in a war. And that would be Afghanistan. Therefore, Afghanistan, I see. He says, I hear a knock on the door. They open it up. Lestrade's there. Lestrade is the police inspector. He says, come, I have a murder I want you to see. And Holmes is, well, they always take credit, but I guess I'll go. Would you like to go with me, Watson? Watson says, sure, I'll go with you. So they go there. And Watson was always thinking that this was kind of a theory for what he was talking about. But Holmes got there and he analyzed everything to the minutest detail. They were in winter, they had snow on, and he would be looking at the tracks all around. He got upset at Lestrade because his men were marking up all the tracks with their boots. But he would get there and he would actually measure the footsteps. Then he would measure the depression that they were made in the ground. He went to the body. He did a thorough search of the body. It was a man, probably about 60 years old. And he went on down, he even smelled his lips. And then he got up and he says, there's not much I can tell about him. And Lestrade says, well, of course. He was about 6'1", 200 pounds. They did not fight. They came in together, and he was poisoned with strychnine. And then they opened up his hand, and it's about a woman. And everybody's going, but that's all I can say. This was Holmes. And off they went. This is all done in the study of scarlet. Then you get into all the other cases that they're going through. And this is one of the things that happened is that Watson started recording the cases under the nom de plume of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is what you end up with. That was a joke, everybody laugh. Okay, thank you. He taught Watson, and he was with all of the inspectors how to really analyze deductions and come to a theory of what you're doing. And he would say, when you get the information, you get data as closely as you possibly can, most exacting data. And what you don't do is you don't twist your facts to fit your theory. It's very easy to do. You take the facts to hypothesize your theory. You change the theory to fit the facts. In all the cases that they were doing, Holmes, unbeknownst in the writings here, had noticed there was a master criminal at work in London. And he identified him, Professor Moriarty. And Moriarty ran one of the largest crime rings ever known. But everybody thought he was a professor. So he started cracking down on him. He got Scotland Yard. And at one point, they started rounding up all of the gang. And then Moriarty got knowledge of this. And he fled the country. He went to Europe. And he chased them all the way to Reichenbach Falls. This is in the Final Solution. Holmes was going to confront Moriarty. He wrote a letter to Watson, went on down to the falls, and him and Moriarty knew this was the end for both of them. And they started struggling and fighting and choking each other, and just right on the edge of the cliff. And then they slipped and they fell, and he died. Both of them died. Fell hundreds and hundreds of feet into the cold rocks and water. Watson was distraught. He could not believe the world had lost its finest detective that it's ever seen. And no more. 3 years later, Watson had started his life over. His wife, Mary, had died at this time. And he was still interested in crime. He set up a practice. And what he did was he found out about the murder that was just happening down from his office. A young lord had got killed in his room. He was sitting on the second floor. He was shot from behind, but the door was locked. There was no gunshot sound. And it was in a house that had servants. There was nobody entering or exiting. How did he die? As Watson's looking at this is the problem, trying to analyze it like Holmes would, because there was no tracks or anything on down there. This old beggar comes up, deformed. Hey, you want some books? And Watson goes, no, go away. I'm busy right now. And the beggar walks away, and Watson goes back to his office, and he's thinking about it. And then in comes the old beggar again. Sorry, I disappointed you, but those would fit those shelves right there. And Watson looks at the shelf. Okay, turns around. There's Holmes. Yes, Holmes did not die. And they talk about it. Holmes, you were wrestling on the cliff. You fell. How did you survive the rocks? And Holmes says, I did not fall. I knew jujitsu. And when he charged me, I flipped him on over and sent Moriarty crashing into the rocks below. Yeah. He spent 3 years traveling, but he came on back because some of the gang of Moriarty was still there. And one of them had a air gun. That's how he killed the man. There was no gunshot wound. They pumped it on up, and they fired and killed him. That was Colonel Moran. He put him away. On and on and on. You have the amazing story, of course, of the Hound of Baskerville, where there's horror stories. There are kidnappings, there are killings, there's robberies, there's everything. But in the end, Holmes retired. But you still want, when you're reading the stories, to have known, to have it in your mind. You see it where he goes, Watson, awake, Watson, the game's afoot. Thank you. Thank you.